Hello everyone, this is Agony333, and this is going to be a terrible review probably. Once this lights. There we go. Because this is a review over a quite disturbing film. It is The Last House on the left. It is the 2009 remake. It runs at an hour and 53 minutes, and I also noticed that there were several different kinds of run times I was seeing and stuff like that when I was looking up different facts and things. There wasn't any trivia I could give us today, but I just noticed there was different run times and stuff, and the hour and 53 minutes is probably due to me watching the unrated version rather than the theatrical one. But it is a horror thriller, and it delivers on some fucking horror, that's for sure. Now, what is this movie about? Well, it's about basically two different groups of people. It's about a family that's going to their summer home for, the summer for a vacation and stuff, by a lake and everything. A nice home, a nice little retreat, but it's interrupted when another group of basically a band of criminals, they're trying to free, their leader, if you will, is a guy named Krug. And they do so, and basically their paths sort of intertwine, and then everything goes downhill from there. And that's where I guess I can leave it at. But this film, I mentioned it being disturbing and stuff because, yes, it's on disturbing lists, and I agree with that. That's what I'll first off say is this film disturbing? I would say yeah. For one scene in particular, as well as other scenes of survival later on in the movie and stuff, because, yeah, the family and the criminals obviously fight and clash. But I won't be getting into the specific scene until spoilers as to why this movie, in my opinion, deserves its spotlight on disturbing lists and why it freaks me the fuck out. But it always has. Because, yes, I watched this in high school in 2009 when it came out. And it stuck with me. It bothered me, that's for sure. I'll admit that. I got no problems admitting that this movie's fucked up. But let me get into things before we get into spoilers. And that's the first thing, is I hate this movie. And yeah, it fucked with me when it came out and stuff. Now, when I say I hate this movie, do I mean that it's terrible? Do I mean that it sucks? Do I mean that it's a shitty movie? No, not at all. It's actually a pretty good one. But it's mainly because of, due to that scene in particular, and other little bits that when I get into those spoilers, you'll understand, I think, sort of. And this is another thing that I'll mention, is a few reviews ago I had covered a movie called The Untold Story. And I mentioned there would be other films that have a villain sort of character, an antagonist, that sort of propels the movie forward because the acting's so well done and it's a character that you just love to fucking hate. This movie is one of those. The antagonist, Krug, is a despicable, fucking terrible, fucking horrible human being, if you can even call him that. Incredibly sadistic, evil bastard of a villain in this film. But that's sort of what makes it, where it is on disturbing lists, as well as making it notable in a way. And like I said, elevating it in a sense, because like Untold Story, how it was a better film for that acting and for making a character that's so despicable, this film's another one that does a similar sort of thing where it excels at bringing you a character that you want to see fucking fall. So other things is, first thing I'll say here, well, not first thing, I've mentioned many fucking things already, but one thing I'll say is that this is one of those cases where the remake is better than the actual original version, because the original version is from 1972, Wes Craven, and it's an alright film. I viewed the original one, but to be honest with you, I watched this one first, and then I had watched the original version, and in comparison, the original one was kind of disappointing. The way it handled things was differently, of course. I'm sure back in its day, the original one was also a notable kind of classic and also known as being disturbing and shit. And I'm not saying the original's not disturbing, it's also fucked up. But, after viewing this one, I feel like they took and really built upon what the original was trying to do and definitely pushed the boundaries and made this version, not even more so disturbing, because it did do that. It succeeded in that. But also, obviously with the effects and the acting, the way it was handled, I feel was better here. So yeah, it's one of those rare cases where, the original isn't the best one in my opinion. A lot of times, a remake might not really match an original movie or, live up to its standards, or they might be, close together or something. In this case, this one's way better, and so I recommend checking out this version rather than the original one from 1972. But then if you're a fan of this one, maybe give the original one a check out, because it does have a kind of grittier, that kind of era feel to it. Another good thing here is the actor Aaron Paul is in this from Breaking Bad and stuff, and he is a great fucking actor in general, but he's also great in this. And it seems like he, filmed this during like season 2 and stuff, which is fucking crazy. I mean, to think that he's, in the middle of filming an amazing, groundbreaking series, because, Breaking Bad is like a favorite of mine. But, then he, on the side, films this and does a pretty good portrayal of a character in this film as well. So, yeah, an awesome fucking actor. Also helps to kind of elevate this film and stuff. The acting's really good in this movie. And let me see another thing. Okay. So I'm not the only one that apparently was upset by this film. And I don't believe this particular thing I'm going to mention to be true. But I thought I would throw it in there because there's going to be a few kind of personal things, I guess, thrown in there. When I had talked to people and stuff. Now, in high school, when this movie came out, there were quite a few people that I had talked to that were bothered by this film, not just me. And one person, a friend of mine in particular, like I said, I don't really believe this, but apparently was so fucking infuriated by the specific scene that I mentioned that he apparently threw his fucking television, which, like I said, is kind of doubtful. I don't know why people like to tell tall tales like that shit, but yeah, he probably was full of crap. I doubt someone was going to break their entire television over this. But that scene, I will say, is that fucking terrible that it brings out some emotions, that's for sure. So if you are looking for something, be prepared, because this movie will, it's gonna deliver on some emotions. For me, it did. And let's get into more notes before I get into spoilers. And I believe that's actually it. So, what rating was I going to give this? Oh, and I should also mention that the sort of another main character's name is Mary, and that's the daughter of the family. I thought I should throw that out there because she plays a pretty big role in this film as well. She's the main one who ends up kind of meeting the criminals, and then they all end up getting together at the house and then battling for survival in a sense. I should have mentioned that way long ago. But what did I end up giving this film? Well, I debated it a little bit, and I ended up giving it a 7.5. It's a decent film. It's got some really intense fucking fights, like I said, for survival and stuff, as well as a really emotionally disturbing scene, one that really stuck with me for quite a while. So yeah, I mean, if you're wanting something that is just really brutal, then this, I guess, will be for you. It's not going to be for many, though, because like I said, the scene and the stuff kind of surrounding it is, it's pretty rough things, yeah. Pretty rough stuff is in this movie. But alright, everybody who wants to just, go to other videos or maybe check this out, peace. And now we'll get into the spoilers that I'm kind of dreading discussing because, yeah, like I said, this film's always bothered me. And I have to explain something before we really get into the spoilers. Why does this film bother me? Well, to be honest, when I watch this film, my belief is it's difficult to know where my foray into extreme horror and, more disturbing kinds of films started. But my belief is that this was kind of before that. So, for me, this was not really like a first kind of foray, because, I had seen probably extreme sort of films before, but, this one was a different kind. So when I watched this one, I didn't expect at all the scene that I'm going to mention. It caught me off guard. It's not like it explains that on the back of the fucking case. I didn't even know this was supposed to be a disturbing movie. It just looked like a cool horror movie, and I remember watching it with my, ex-girlfriend now, obviously, but, because it's many, many years. But I remember watching it with her, and it was just like, wow, just the emotion in that room when I first watched it, I'll never forget. There's those movies you never forget the experience you had. And this is one of those movies where it was just like I can't describe the feeling that was in that room, but it was horrible. But let me see where I can go before even getting into that scene. The first thing I'll say is, like I've mentioned, Krug the main bastard that they break out, which I don't even know why you'd want to free this fucking bastard, but you know, his cronies, his friends, decide to free him. And one of the first kind of scenes with this fucker that you see that immediately establishes just how sadistic and terrible this man is when he's in this, he's being basically, I think, taken to prison or, traveling and stuff, and he's in the backseat of a police car. And they basically break him out by ramming this car, the criminals do. And, once he's freed, he doesn't just run away and leave with them. They don't just get the hell out of there and leave. They don't just, kill off the police officers to at least make sure they can get away somewhat safely. No, they take the time to sit there and basically torment them. And the way that Krug does it, like I said, there's certain moments in this that kind of stuck with me. It's just like, wow, like, you know what I mean? It's like, this is a character that, just like in the Untold Story, he's a person that goes out of his way to make moments as terrible as he possibly can for some fucking reason. And what he does is he basically holds the police officer down and shows him a picture of his kids and says something that you'll never see again before he kills them. And I just remember, like I said, watching it the first time and just being like, what the fuck? Like, I had seen horror movies before, and there's brutal things and stuff, but just for whatever reason, that moment was just a fucked up and sad moment. You know what I mean? To actually point something like that out, to mention that, to have him look at that, and to have that be like a final thought for somebody is just really cruel and fucked up. Another thing that I'll mention, though, was early on, there's a scene where she's swimming and stuff. I thought it was hilarious because I noticed it pretty quickly that it seems very similar. The theme that plays during like that moment is a sort of kind of ripoff from the film 28 Days and Weeks Later. The theme song from that, it has its own name and stuff. Really great song. It's a really great song, but they ended up using it here as well. Obviously they had the rights or something, but I thought that was funny. I mean, even the first time viewing it, I pointed that out. I was like, this is the song from that fucking movie. Great movies also, by the way, if you're wanting something not lighthearted, but a normal kind of, sort of horror experience instead of something fucking crazy like this. 28 Days and Weeks Later, check those out. Really good movies. But let's keep going. Yeah, I'm about to get into the scene itself. Now, there's going to be something that I'm mentioning that may also come off as offensive, not due to me, but due to another friend, because like I said, there was a couple kind of personal moments, if you will, and shit like that I'm sharing, kind of like how the experience itself was. But I'll first mention how the scene itself impacted me and why. And this scene that I keep mentioning, what the fuck is this scene? Well, when Mary, the daughter, ends up crossing paths with another character, a young boy, not a young boy, but like her age, that's with the criminals, ends up going and smoking weed with them and stuff, and then that's how they basically get intertwined, and everything gets all mixed up and crazy, and how they meet. Well, the criminals and Krug, during while they're trying to kind of get out of town and everything, and find the way through these woods and stuff, and there's a car wreck and all kinds of other shit, the sick fuck basically decides to rape Mary. And the fashion in which he does it, and the way that the scene's portrayed, is a very notable one. I mean, it doesn't beat Irreversible, because Irreversible is probably the worst thing you could ever see when it comes to something like that. But I'd say this one's high up there. And I mean, to be honest with you, and like I said, I don't really give a fuck what people think. When I watched that, I mean, that scene devastated me. It was fucked up. The way it was done, the way that the character Krug even ripped off her necklace, because she has a necklace from her deceased brother that he casts aside and makes a remark about. I mean, it's moments like those ones, those little moments like that really add a sadistic edge to those already terrible moments in this film. But that whole scene is a very terrible one. It brought me to tears. That's what I'm saying. I don't really give a shit if anyone's going to judge or not. I mean, it really bothered me, as well as my girlfriend at the time who had been watching it with me. We didn't expect it coming, obviously. Just like I said, the feeling in that room upon that viewing, in other times I've watched the movie and stuff, and I dread watching this fucking movie. But just the feeling in that room is indescribable. And so that's why, even though I don't believe that other friend who had said he'd thrown the TV, that sort of sums up a feeling well. Because it's like, it was a sad moment, obviously, like I said, brought to tears. But at the same time, the rage that this movie brings about as well. Because that's what I was feeling. I was feeling sorrow and fucking rage. Because the helpless feeling you're given seeing this poor fucking person have to go through something like that. It impacts you pretty thoroughly. And so now I'm going to come into a part that's sort of offensive. And like I said, not due on my part, but due to another friend, because sometime after viewing this film, I decided to show a friend this movie. And this other friend that I showed this film to, who I'm not friends with anymore, by the way, I had showed this movie to him. And I don't know why this friend would make remarks like this. This wasn't the only time he said some really off remarks. But this friend had a big issue against smoking pot and things like that. And so the remark that he decided to give, and I doubt he's viewing this right now, but if he does, he might get kind of offended about what I'm going to say to him. But he basically he said that Mary deserved what she got due to smoking marijuana. And I have to say, fuck you. And I basically told him that the moment he said that too, because he said that like right after that scene when we were watching that. And I basically almost shut the movie down and wanted to tell him to go the fuck home. Because to me, it was like, there is not a single fucking person on the planet or in existence that deserves a horrible fucking thing like that. And so, for someone to say that, for that friend to say that, really was fucked up. I don't know. I mean, like I said, this dude has said remarks like that before. I don't know why. I don't know why this fucker has the viewpoint that he has. No offense, but I don't have that fucking viewpoint. Get the fuck out of here. None of those fucking things deserve to happen to nobody. But yeah, the fucker decided to say that. Now let's move on. So, yeah, that is the scene in question that is a very bothersome scene and kind of makes this movie on that disturbing list and everything else. But, that's not where it ends. That's the worst of it. But the fights for survival are really fucking brutal as well and savage. Obviously, after something like that, because once the girl thankfully gets away, Mary does, after it's all done, after it's all said and done, her friend is sadly killed. She watches her friend die. But she gets away from this fucked up situation, barely, and makes it back to the family's home. And then the criminals whose car has been wrecked also basically hitchhike and just so happen to get to the same fucking home in the woods. And once the family figures out what has occurred, what's happened to their daughter, and that these fuckers are the ones who did that, even if they wanted to just escape, they really can't have the means to do that. And so they're kind of forced into this dilemma where they have to fight to survive. And the worst parts of them are sort of brought out in this situation too. And when that happens, things get a whole lot fucking worse on top of what's already happened. So, let me see if I can mention that. I was going to also say that the music, I feel like, is pretty well done. It adds to the intense fights later on and everything. And what was also interesting that I noticed, this was kind of a neat little addition here, was during early on in the film when the girls, Mary and her friend, are first meeting the criminals and stuff. They're in a hotel room. And when they're trying to escape, you get that sense of the helplessness. As you know, they're outnumbered by these criminals. They don't know what they're doing. And you see, the friend kind of going to the window and begging for help and everything else, trying desperately to get out of this horrible situation that they're enveloped in. And later on, when it's, now at the family's home, and Francis is one of the criminals, the character that's portrayed by Aaron Paul. It's neat because there's a moment there where when he stumbles into his own horrible situation where he's about to fight for survival, he goes to the window of the family's home. It has a similar moment that kind of mirrors how the struggle was before. So it's almost like it signals a reversing of the role. It signals, how the tides have changed, how the tables have turned, and now, the ones who thought they are in control of everything, these, fucking tough criminals and these fucking despicable bastards that think that they have this whole situation, when it's all turned around. It's just kind of a neat little nod to that earlier moment, how that connection's kind of made. And it's one that I never really noticed really before until seeing it this time. I was kind of like, huh. I noticed that how that's an indication of that. But that scene in particular is also a very brutal one, the way in which Francis dies. And that's another a kind of personal moment I'm going to mention. The way Francis dies is fucking crazy because his arm ends up getting jammed into a garbage disposal and ground up. His fingers end up getting ground up in this fucking garbage disposal. And that's a kind of, I guess, a humorous thing. As I also mentioned another review or so ago during the Black Sheep review about irrational fears. And I'll say, after watching this movie, that particular scene gave me an irrational fear of garbage disposals. Fucking funny enough. Because after seeing that, I was just like, my fucking God. I saw that shit, and it freaked me the fuck out. And then, ironically enough, my job that I had ended up going to had a garbage disposal that I had to fuck with and clean out after that fucking scene and stuff. So I had to contend with my irrational fear at the moment. It had me kind of paused there and stunned for a minute when I realized I had to mirror that in my own way by fixing a fucking garbage disposal and stuff. So yeah, that was kind of, I guess, humorous. Thankfully, I overcame it and stuff, but I guess a humorous moment in all this fucking crazy review and stuff. But that's the next thing I guess I'll say, as I'm about to wrap this up, is Francis obviously dies, probably the worst out of anybody in that criminal group. But that's the one thing that I always felt throughout this whole thing, whenever I watched the movie, was at the very end, during the whole crazy fights and everything else, when the movie's sort of finally resolved and everybody's been taken out, and thankfully, the family members survive and get away okay, obviously not fully okay due to what's happened, but they survive. They take Krug with them, and the way in which Krug dies, I feel like, he really got away easy compared to Francis. Because, Francis obviously is a terrible fucker just like the rest of them. But if anybody deserved to have a really rough death, you'd think Krug would be the one who would have been deserving of a worse fate than he got. But no, really out of all of them, Krug kind of, in a way, sort of gets away easier. I don't know. I guess Sadie had a quick kind of end. She gets kind of shot in the head, but yeah, I don't know. That was always kind of an annoying aspect, at least to me. It's like, he perpetrates and causes a lot of the harm in the movie. And then in comparison, kind of gets away easily compared to other characters and stuff. I don't know. But, yeah, a crazy, intense, disturbing, horrific fucking film, but a good one as well. I think I've basically covered everything that I need to. But yeah, Garrett Dillahunt, the person who acted as Krug, did a great job at portraying a horrible, despicable villain. Aaron Paul did a great job also in that band, as well as acting across the board, the scenery and everything. Really good. Like I said, 7.5. If you're looking for something that's a very emotional film, this one's for you. Highly emotional. Was for me. Is for me every single time. Like I said, I dread watching this movie, but I did so in order to cover and review it. But I hope that you guys are having a much better outlook, a much better day, one that's not so bleak and everything. And I hope that you have a wonderfully amazing week whenever you're reviewing this. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next review. Have an amazing one. Peace.